Sunny Hostin, a co-host of ABC's The View, has been a polarizing figure known for her candid takes on race, politics, and societal issues. However, recent events have thrust her into the eye of a public storm, making headlines not only for her on-air remarks but also for a growing scandal involving her husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin. The combination of these controversies has sparked widespread debate, questioning both her professional future and personal integrity. The latest controversy surrounding Sunny Hostin, a prominent co-host of ABC's The View, erupted during a heated discussion about voter behavior and political influence, a topic that often generates lively debate on the show. On this particular occasion, Hostin, known for her candid and sometimes controversial viewpoints, made a statement that shocked many viewers and has since sparked a nationwide conversation. Hostin boldly declared that non-college educated white women had been programmed to uphold a political system that ultimately works against their own best interests. This sweeping generalization about an entire demographic instantly raised eyebrows and triggered a significant backlash, both online and among her co-hosts. Hostin's words, while intended to highlight certain socio-political patterns, came across to many as an overly simplistic and divisive attack on an entire group of people. She argued that this demographic had been conditioned to support policies and candidates that perpetuate the very inequalities that they, as individuals, may experience. In her view, these women, many of whom she claimed are voting against their own self-interests, are, in some ways, trapped in a cycle of reinforcing a system that continues to disadvantage them. Her statement, which painted such a broad stroke across millions of Americans, seemed to disregard the complexity of individual political choices and the varied reasons behind them. It's one thing to critique the political system, but to directly accuse a specific group of women of being complicit in their own oppression raised the temperature on the set of The View. While Hostin's co-hosts, including Alyssa Farah-Griffin, immediately attempted to push back, questioning the validity of generalizing such a large group of people. The tension in the studio was palpable. The studio audience, who is accustomed to the show's spirited debates, fell silent, caught off guard by the intensity of the exchange. The level of discomfort was so pronounced that the show's producers decided to abruptly cut to a commercial break, providing a brief respite from the on-air clash. This sudden interruption only amplified the drama, leaving the viewers at home with a sense of unease, wondering what had just transpired. What made this particular incident even more intense was the fact that Hostin didn't seem to back down from her remarks. She doubled down on her statement, insisting that the facts speak for themselves. Her refusal to soften her stance created a sense of division, not only on set but also across the media landscape. The reaction from the viewers was swift and divided. Many were enraged, feeling that Hostin had crossed a line in her commentary and failed to acknowledge the nuances of political decision-making. Others, however, felt that she was simply calling out a hard truth that was difficult for many to hear. This was by no means the first time that Hostin's controversial comments had sparked public outcry. Throughout her tenure on The View, Hostin has consistently made bold and, at times, divisive statements, especially on topics related to race, privilege, and political ideologies. She has earned a reputation for challenging the status quo, but her approach has also earned her the ire of many critics. One of her earlier remarks, where she claimed that white mediocrity was to blame for the lack of diversity in leadership positions, sparked a firestorm of backlash. Hostin argued that in many cases, white individuals could rise to leadership positions without demonstrating exceptional ability or talent, simply due to the racial dynamics of the system. These remarks were met with accusations that Hostin was perpetuating harmful stereotypes and unfairly targeting white people for perceived advantages. Moreover, Hostin has repeatedly criticized certain voter groups, especially those who vote in ways that she feels are against their own interests. For example, she has accused Latino men and non-college educated white women of voting in ways that contradict their own community's needs. In her view, these groups were supporting political candidates who would not benefit their communities or improve their living conditions. Her comments often draw sharp criticism from both conservative and liberal circles, as people on both sides of the political spectrum find her generalizations to be troubling. However, it was this most recent incident on The View that struck a particularly raw nerve with viewers. The nature of her comments, combined with the growing societal divide on issues related to race and politics, made this episode one of the most talked about moments in the show's history. The backlash was unlike anything Hostin had faced before. In fact, many accused her of engaging in rhetoric that was not only divisive, but also dangerously alienating. While she has long been accused of making inflammatory comments, this latest tirade seemed to amplify those accusations to a new level. The intensity of the response was unprecedented. Social media exploded with a flood of criticism, with many questioning whether it was time for Hostin to be held accountable for the harm caused by her words. Despite the mounting backlash, Hostin remained steadfast in her position. She continued to defend her statement, claiming that these were the difficult conversations that needed to be had, no matter how uncomfortable they might be. Her defiant stance only fueled the firestorm, leading some to argue that her refusal to apologize was a sign of tone deafness and a lack of accountability. To others, her unwillingness to back down reinforced her image as a strong, unapologetic advocate for social justice, even if her words caused discomfort. Ultimately, what started as a typical The View debate over voter behavior and political influence morphed into a scandal that captured the attention of the nation. Hostin's controversial remarks have since become the focal point of heated debates, with people across the country weighing in on the validity and impact of her words. The question now is whether Hostin will be able to weather the storm and continue as a co-host on the show, or whether the fallout from her most recent comments will lead to a reevaluation of her place in the media landscape. In a media climate that increasingly demands accountability from public figures, especially those who make sweeping statements about race and politics, Hostin's latest on-air tirade has raised uncomfortable questions about the responsibility of celebrities to navigate sensitive issues with care and nuance. Whether or not this controversy will mark a turning point in Hostin's career remains to be seen, but one thing is clear. Her words have ignited a firestorm that will likely follow her for the foreseeable future. As the dust settled following Sunny Hostin's controversial remarks on The View, the media landscape was immediately set ablaze with reactions from all corners of the political spectrum. What had begun as an offhand comment in the midst of a heated discussion about voter behavior had quickly spiraled into a full-scale public relations nightmare. Hostin, who has never been one to shy away from challenging the status quo, now found herself at the center of an uproar, with critics across social media, television, and even within her own fanbase voicing their condemnation. The backlash was swift, intense, and unrelenting, leaving many questioning whether the fiery co-host of The View could survive the storm she had inadvertently stirred up. The criticisms against Hostin were wide-ranging, with many accusing her of perpetuating divisive, racist, and sexist rhetoric. Her claim that non-college-educated white women were programmed to support a system that worked against their best interests was particularly controversial. Critics argued that her blanket generalization of an entire demographic group was not only factually inaccurate, but also harmful. To many, it seemed like Hostin was categorically accusing a significant portion of the American population of being complicit in their own oppression, without considering the complexities of individual voting behavior or the socioeconomic factors at play. This all-encompassing critique struck a nerve, particularly with those who felt personally attacked by Hostin's words. The criticism didn't stop at the content of her remarks. Many commentators began to question whether there was a double standard at play in the way Hostin was being treated. The argument was made that, had a male host made similar comments, his career would have been over. This sentiment was widely shared across social media platforms, where users expressed frustration at what they saw as a lack of accountability for Hostin. Some pointed to the fact that, in the past, male hosts and public figures who made controversial or inflammatory statements were often met with swift professional consequences, sometimes resulting in their ousting from their respective platforms. Yet Hostin, despite her polarizing comments, appeared to be receiving a degree of leniency that others might not have been afforded. The perception of unequal treatment only added fuel to the firestorm. At the heart of this growing backlash was the question of accountability. Hostin has built a reputation as a staunch advocate for justice, equity, and social change. She has been a vocal proponent of racial and gender justice, often calling out systemic inequalities and demanding accountability from those in power. Yet her comments on The View seem to run counter to the very principles she has espoused for years. Critics were quick to point out the irony in her stance. How could she, on one hand, call for accountability and fairness while, on the other hand, generalize entire groups of people in such an inflammatory manner? This apparent hypocrisy only made her words more difficult to digest for many of her critics. As the backlash grew, so did the calls for her to take responsibility for her actions. Yet, despite the growing chorus of criticism, Hostin remained defiant. In an attempt to quell the outrage, she released a statement doubling down on her comments. She argued that the conversations she was trying to spark were difficult but necessary. Uncomfortable conversations need to be had, she stated, standing firm in her belief that the issues she raised were ones that could not be ignored. This stance, however, did little to alleviate the public's anger. In fact, her refusal to issue an apology or soften her remarks only intensified the ire directed toward her. Hostin's defiance in the face of criticism created a divide among her supporters and detractors. To some, her refusal to back down was a sign of strength, a willingness to speak uncomfortable truths no matter the cost. They argued that it was important for public figures like Hostin to take a stand on pressing social issues, even if it meant ruffling feathers. From this perspective, Hostin was merely challenging the prevailing narratives and calling attention to issues that were too often swept under the rug. Her supporters saw her as a fearless truth-teller, unafraid to tackle difficult conversations about race, gender, and politics. On the other hand, many of her critics saw her defiance as a sign of tone deafness, a failure to understand the gravity of the situation. To them, Hostin's refusal to apologize for her comments only compounded the damage done. It was one thing to make controversial statements. It was another to remain unrepentant when those statements caused harm. This stance left many questioning Hostin's sincerity and whether she truly understood the impact of her words. As the days passed, the calls for her removal from The View began to escalate. Viewers took to social media urging ABC to take action against the co-host, accusing her of creating a toxic environment on the show. The hashtag #FireSunnyHostin began trending on Twitter, with users demanding that the network hold her accountable for her divisive rhetoric. Some suggested that her polarizing presence was damaging to The View, a show that thrives on its ability to foster spirited debates and provide diverse viewpoints. The idea that Hostin's controversial remarks were alienating large sections of the audience raised concerns about the long-term viability of her role on the show. Was her presence doing more harm than good? Within the industry, the fallout from Hostin's comments also sparked a broader conversation about the role of public figures in shaping discourse. As social media becomes an increasingly influential platform for public discourse, figures like Hostin are held to a higher standard. The public now expects those in the media spotlight to not only be mindful of their words, but also to recognize the power that their statements can have on shaping public opinion. The scrutiny surrounding Hostin highlighted the growing pressure on public figures to be more responsible with their language, especially when discussing sensitive topics like race, politics, and gender. Despite the calls for accountability and the mounting criticism, Hostin's supporters continued to defend her right to speak her mind, arguing that the backlash was an overreaction. They contended that public figures, especially those in the realm of politics and media, should not be silenced simply because their opinions make others uncomfortable. For them, Hostin's comments represented a much-needed challenge to the status quo, a challenge that many felt was long overdue. However, as the controversy continued to unfold, it became clear that the division surrounding Hostin's remarks was more than just a momentary flare-up. It was indicative of a larger cultural rift, a reflection of the deepening polarization in American society. Hostin's comments, regardless of their intent, had opened a wound that would take time to heal, and whether she would ultimately be able to repair her public image remained to be seen. For now, the drama continues to unfold. The question remains, will the growing backlash force Hostin to reconsider her approach to public discourse, or will she continue to stand firm in her beliefs, no matter the cost? One thing is certain, the fallout from her remarks will have lasting implications, both for her career and for the broader conversation about race, politics, and media in America. Just as the storm surrounding Sunny Hostin's controversial on-air comments on The View began to settle, a new and even more serious scandal emerged, this time involving her husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin. The renowned orthopedic surgeon, known for his prominent practice in New York, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Dr. Hostin found himself at the center of a massive federal insurance fraud investigation, after a lawsuit was filed against him by American Transit, a commercial insurance company primarily serving taxi and rideshare drivers. The lawsuit alleges that Dr. Hostin, along with a group of other medical professionals, engaged in widespread fraudulent billing practices, performing unnecessary surgeries on patients, and accepting kickbacks for these procedures. The lawsuit, which is being pursued under the federal RICO, Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, is not just a typical civil claim, but a high-stakes legal battle with the potential for severe criminal and financial penalties if the allegations are proven true. The RICO Act, originally designed to target prosecutors to pursue charges against individuals or groups engaged in ongoing criminal enterprises. This act significantly raises the stakes of the case, as it involves more than just individual fraud, but rather a coordinated effort to defraud the insurance company on a large scale. If American Transit's allegations hold up in court, the financial penalties could be staggering, potentially amounting to hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. For Dr. Hostin, the ramifications of this lawsuit could be catastrophic, both professionally and personally. His career as a respected orthopedic surgeon could be permanently damaged, and the legal consequences could threaten not just his livelihood, but his reputation within the medical community. The allegations against Dr. Hostin are serious, involving claims that he knowingly performed unnecessary surgeries on patients, all in exchange for kickbacks from medical supply companies or other parties. These kickbacks are said to have been disguised as legitimate business transactions, making it appear as though the money was simply part of a normal financial arrangement when, in reality, it was part of an illicit scheme to line his pockets. The lawsuit claims that this fraudulent activity not only put patients at risk, but also cost the insurance company millions of dollars in fraudulent claims. The magnitude of the allegations is enough to shake the foundation of Dr. Hostin's medical practice and has put his entire career in jeopardy. While Dr. Hostin has vehemently denied the accusations, stating through his lawyer that he denies each and every allegation, and that the lawsuit is a blanket, scattershot, meritless lawsuit, the timing of the legal battle has only served to intensify the public scrutiny surrounding the Hostin family. The fact that the accusations have surfaced in the midst of Sunny Hostin's own public controversy only adds fuel to the fire. As her husband's legal troubles become more widely known, the media and public have begun to speculate about the connection between Sunny's public stance on justice and fairness and her support for her husband amidst such serious allegations. The timing of these revelations, coming so soon after Sunny Hostin's highly charged remarks on The View, has created a perfect storm for the co-host. Many critics are questioning whether Sunny, known for her outspokenness on issues of racial and social justice, could possibly reconcile her public advocacy for accountability with her defense of her husband against such serious charges. In a moment when public figures are increasingly being held to account for their words and actions, the irony of a justice advocate defending someone embroiled in a massive fraud case has not gone unnoticed. To many, it seems as though Hostin's defense of her husband, despite the gravity of the accusations, contradicts the very values she has championed throughout her career. The growing scandal has also led to rumors that Sunny Hostin may have known about her husband's alleged involvement in the fraudulent activities. While there has been no official indication that Sunny was directly involved in or had knowledge of the scheme, the media has been quick to fuel speculation. Some have questioned whether Sunny, who has positioned herself as a fierce defender of truth and accountability, was complicit in turning a blind eye to her husband's actions, or whether she simply failed to recognize the gravity of the situation before it became public knowledge. The mere suggestion that she may have known about the fraudulent activities only deepens the complexity of her public image and creates further tension in an already volatile situation. For critics, the juxtaposition of Sunny Hostin's advocacy for social justice and her defense of her husband against these serious charges is deeply troubling. How can she, they ask, continue to speak out about accountability, race, and justice when her own family appears to be entangled in such a scandal? Some have gone so far as to accuse Hostin of hypocrisy, questioning her commitment to the principles she espouses. If she truly believes in accountability and fairness, critics argue, why does she not hold her husband to the same standards that she demands of others? The tension between her public persona and the private actions of her family has raised uncomfortable questions about the nature of accountability and whether it applies equally to everyone, regardless of their status or relationships. Despite the mounting pressure and the growing media frenzy surrounding her husband's legal troubles, Sunny Hostin has continued to stand by him. In a statement released to the media, she vehemently defended Dr. Hostin, accusing the insurance company of targeting him in an attempt to avoid paying its own financial obligations. She claimed that the lawsuit was nothing more than a baseless attack designed to damage her family's reputation and distract from the company's own financial woes. "This lawsuit is nothing more than a smear campaign," she said, standing firm in her belief that her husband had been wronged. She further added that she and Dr. Hostin plan to countersue the insurance company for defamation, seeking millions in damages. While Sunny's statement has been seen by some as an act of loyalty and defiance in the face of an unjust attack, others view it as a strategic attempt to deflect attention from the severity of the allegations. Her combative stance, rather than calming the storm, has only heightened the public's curiosity and skepticism. Many question whether her approach is helping or hurting her husband's case. In the court of public opinion, her refusal to back down from the accusations has placed her firmly at the center of a scandal that is rapidly gaining traction. For Dr. Hostin, the consequences of these allegations are far-reaching. If the charges against him are proven to be true, the ramifications will be profound. Beyond the financial penalties and potential criminal charges, his career as a trusted orthopedic surgeon could be irreparably damaged. The public's trust, once lost, is difficult to regain, and Dr. Hostin's reputation may never fully recover from the damage caused by the scandal. As for Sunny, the ongoing media frenzy surrounding her husband's legal issues has raised further questions about her future in the public eye. Will her defense of her husband be seen as a courageous stand for family loyalty, or will it damage her credibility as a champion of justice? The unfolding saga is not just a legal battle, it's a test of public perception and accountability. As the investigation continues and the legal proceedings unfold, all eyes will remain on the Hostins, waiting to see how they navigate the storm that has engulfed them. The allegations against Dr. Hostin are serious, and the way Sunny handles the fallout could have lasting consequences for both their careers and their public personas. As the legal battle involving Dr. Emmanuel Hostin continues to unfold, it has cast a long and increasingly difficult shadow over his wife, Sunny Hostin's career. In an age where personal lives are scrutinized under a public microscope, it is nearly impossible for public figures to maintain a strict separation between their private matters and their professional personas. For someone like Sunny Hostin, who has built her reputation as a staunch advocate for social justice, racial equity, and accountability, the ongoing scandal surrounding her family's legal troubles has created a significant challenge to the image she has worked tirelessly to cultivate. For years, Sunny Hostin has been a prominent figure on The View, where she is known for offering unapologetic commentary on societal issues. Her candidness, often unapologetically blunt, has won her a loyal following while also alienating some viewers who disagree with her views. Her role as a co-host on The View has been closely tied to her identity as a bold, outspoken advocate for fairness and justice, frequently challenging societal norms and confronting uncomfortable truths. Whether discussing race, politics, or social justice, Sunny's presence on the show has consistently been one of fiery debate, offering viewers a voice that questions the status quo. However, the controversy surrounding her husband's alleged involvement in a massive fraud scheme threatens to undermine the very principles that have made her such a polarizing figure in the public eye. The legal battle involving Dr. Hostin and the accusations of insurance fraud not only place his career in jeopardy, but also raise uncomfortable questions about Sunny's own position as a champion of accountability. Can she, as a public figure advocating for justice and fairness, continue to maintain the moral high ground while defending her husband against such serious allegations? Or will the scandal surrounding her family's actions erode the credibility she has established over years of outspoken activism? As the media frenzy surrounding the Hostin family continues to grow, the question on many people's minds is whether this scandal will irreparably tarnish Sunny Hostin's professional persona. She has long been a vocal advocate for transparency, integrity, and the need for powerful figures to be held accountable for their actions. But now, with her husband embroiled in a legal battle that threatens not only his reputation but their families, many are wondering if her own advocacy for justice is at odds with her personal life. The public has long been accustomed to seeing Sunny speak out against what she perceives as systemic injustices. But how will they respond when the stakes are no longer abstract, but directly tied to her own family's actions? The scrutiny over her personal life has opened up a wider conversation about the complex balance that public figures must strike between their professional roles and private lives. At the heart of this situation is the difficulty of reconciling one's personal beliefs with the actions of loved ones. For some, the dilemma is whether Sunny, as a fierce advocate for justice, should distance herself from her husband's alleged actions. If Dr. Hostin is ultimately found guilty of the accusations, will it damage her credibility as a figure who calls for accountability in the public sphere? Should she stand by him, no matter the circumstances? Or does her position demand that she hold herself and her family to the same standard she holds others? While some viewers may see her defense of her husband as an act of loyalty and familial support, others see it as a potentially dangerous endorsement of behavior that runs counter to the values she espouses on The View. Her refusal to apologize for her own controversial statements and her unwavering stance in defending her husband against the fraud allegations only add fuel to the fire. For many, this raises the question of whether she is living up to her own principles when faced with real-world consequences. How can someone who regularly calls out hypocrisy in others justify defending a family member against accusations of wrongdoing? The dilemma Sunny faces is not just about her personal integrity, but also the professional environment in which she operates. The View, a show known for its diverse perspectives and sharp commentary, has long thrived on the robust, often contentious debates between its co-hosts. However, with the rise of public scandals involving one of its most prominent figures, the show now finds itself caught in a difficult position. As one of the most watched daytime talk shows in the country, The View has maintained its cultural relevance by constantly addressing the hot-button issues of the day. The show has prided itself on discussing controversial topics openly, allowing its co-hosts to bring their individual perspectives to the table. But with the scandal surrounding Sunny Hostin, the show now faces the question of how to manage the controversy without alienating its audience. There is a delicate balance that needs to be struck here. On one hand, The View has built its reputation on offering a platform for strong, diverse opinions. Sunny's voice, as one of the more outspoken co-hosts, has contributed significantly to the show's dynamic. However, with the legal drama surrounding Dr. Hostin, the show risks becoming the subject of the scandal, rather than its usual focus on discussing current events. Viewers are already questioning whether The View can continue to operate as it has in the past when one of its co-hosts is embroiled in such a high-profile controversy. Some viewers have expressed frustration, wondering if the show has become too politicized, while others are concerned that it is veering away from its core mission of fostering meaningful discussion. Moreover, there's the question of whether The View should take any action regarding Sunny Hostin's future on the show. As her legal troubles and public persona continue to generate backlash, some are asking whether the show should consider removing her from the panel. While such a move could appease critics, it would also risk alienating viewers who support Hostin's right to speak her mind, regardless of her personal circumstances. With the stakes so high, it remains to be seen how the show's producers will navigate the controversy. For Sunny, this period in her career is a crossroads. How will she handle the intersection of her personal and public lives? And will her actions during this tumultuous time allow her to regain the trust of her audience? Or will they mark the beginning of a slow erosion of the reputation she has spent so long building? The outcome of this scandal may not just impact her career on The View, but may also set the stage for how public figures in the future will balance their professional responsibilities with their personal affiliations, particularly when the actions of loved ones come under scrutiny. As the legal proceedings unfold and the public's scrutiny intensifies, the future of Sunny Hostin's career remains uncertain. Will the backlash against her comments and her husband's legal troubles overshadow her ability to continue as a prominent voice on The View? Or will the controversy die down, and Hostin will emerge unscathed, continuing to advocate for the causes she believes in? The unfolding drama has certainly put Hostin's career and personal life under a microscope. Only time will tell how this complex situation plays out, and whether it will mark the end of her time in the public spotlight.